You might be struggling right now, not having the life you want and caring about things that don't matter.
In today's episode, Mark Manson explains the 4 steps to stop giving a fuck and finally start living the life of your dreams.
So get your pen and paper, sit down and get ready to take notes. So Mark, what are the 4 steps we're going to learn today?
So we'll talk about how to stop giving a fuck about all the things you don't want to give a fuck about. We'll talk about how to stop caring what other people think. That's a huge one that comes up all the time. We're going to talk about personal responsibility. And then I think it's really important to talk about emotional management.
Great. Well, let's start with what to give a fuck about. And I showed you a few videos of people that won't follow their dreams. Someone that wants to sing that won't sing. Even though her dream is to sing.
Excuse me, do you guys have a dream?
She has a dream.
You have a dream?
I do have a dream.
What is it?
I want to be a singer.
Okay, sing.
Oh no, I'm shy. That's why my dream hasn't become reality.
9.4 million people follow me online. Last video got 65 million views. This is your chance to get noticed, get followers, and your dream to begin. So sing.
I'm shy.
Me too.
I'm even more shy now that you're putting me on spot. But if you have,
But it's just us. What you say?
4 million followers.
9.4.
9.4. I'm known on social media as well, Melissa Sandoval. So hopefully that works.
Yeah, but everyone wants to hear it. That's how they're gonna now. Why not?
I'm not the best person for this. I'm so sorry.
You're so good at this. You're a singer.
You're good at this.
I desperately want to hear you sing as well, personally.
You're really good at this.
But I know that's your destiny. So why not just do it?
So, you know, what is it that people should give a fuck about and what they shouldn't? How can they determine if they're listening now, like what is important and what isn't?
So ultimately, like the question of what to give a fuck about, it's really a question of prioritization, right? Like there are multiple things that we all care about in our lives, and many of those things are competing things. And the question is like, are you properly prioritizing certain things over others? So let's use the example of the girls who her dream was to sing, right? Obviously, one of her priorities in life is to be a singer. But she has competing priorities. One is she doesn't want to fail. She doesn't want to, want to embarrass herself in front of 9 million people. She doesn't want to screw up or sing something that she hasn't prepared properly enough or whatever. She potentially has other concerns. It's like maybe she's like worried about all the attention she might get. Maybe she is super anxious and she just wants to relieve the anxiety and get you to go away.
Which a lot of people do.
Like the thing about emotions is when we're overwhelmed by an emotion in the moment, like we don't think rationally beyond that. It's all we know is like, get the anxiety to stop, get it to go away. Get this guy with the microphone out of my face. I would say the issue there is like the problem's not the emotion. The problem is the misprioritization, right? Is like she's prioritizing,
get rid of the pain.
So she's prioritizing relieving her anxiety over her dream of being a singer. And like that, ultimately, when we talk about like, I wish I didn't give a fuck, like this is what we're talking about. It's like this misprioritization of the things that we want in our life. And this can happen for a lot of reasons, right? Like the avoid, like not wanting to fail or embarrass yourself, not wanting to feel anxious anymore, not being worried about like everybody paying attention to you and judging you and, saying mean things about you on the internet. Like these are all very natural human worries that we all have. But it takes a certain amount of work or skill to learn how to move them down your prioritization list.
Well, this feels like it's in your subconscious. It's an instinct to not get rid of fear as quickly as you can, right? So stop the fear.
Yeah.
It's not. This is a rational thing, isn't it? This is a frontal lobe thing, almost like I want to be a singer. I know I do. I can sing, but this is a subconscious, like I'm breathing now without even realizing it, kind of thing. Yeah. It's an instant reaction, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So it's controlling your subconscious, is it?
Yeah, and it's some of this too is like there really is. I use the word skill very intentionally because there is very much a skill component to all of this. And I think that doesn't really get discussed enough. If you think like, if we take, let's bracket aside the example of the girl who wants to be a singer. Let's take a really extreme example of something that like might make you scared or anxious or whatever. Let's say you're like a lion tamer in a circus, right? And the first time you get into a cage with a lion, your heart's going to be absolutely pounding. You're going to be freaking out. Your palms are going to be sweaty. You're going to be like, everything you've learned or studied or thought about or listened to is going to be out of your mind. You're just going to be freaking out in that moment. What happens though is as you gain exposure to that. As you get into the cage with the lion more and more and more, and you start interacting with the lion and you like learn the lion and you gain confidence around the lion, that sense of, that overwhelming sense of fear or anxiety diminishes in your brain. And as it diminishes, it hijacks you less. And so you're able to prioritize kind of the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe stuff, more than the limbic system stuff, right? And so the question for that girl is, where has she gotten her reps in to get over that fear, right? Has she sung in front of a small audience? Has she sung in front of, I don't know, at like a school event? Has she like gotten up at an open mic night? Has she done karaoke every weekend, right? Like it's probably something you see in business all the time too. It's like people say like, oh, I have this idea, I want to start a business. Yet they don't do anything. They like sit and sit and sit and sit. And then, you know, when somebody like you shows up and is like, hey, let me help you with that. They've put 0 reps in, they've done no preparation, and they haven't done the skill work. They haven't developed the skill of like overcoming that fear and anxiety and struggle, right? And so in her case, it's, if she had done all those reps, I mean, we don't know if she did or not, but like, let's assume she had done all those reps and she was working towards something. Then suddenly you show up. Now she's got a song ready to go. She just sang a song the other night. You know, she's like, oh, she's got this song she's done karaoke a million times on. She can whip it out on her phone and do it again for you. Like, this is going to sound so cliche and pedantic, but like the way you do something is by doing it, right? If your dream is to do a certain thing, you should just start doing that thing. Right. Like that's the best way.
Again, the singer analogy is really good. By the way, she's now singing.
Good.
And she's doing really well.
Great.
But I think it's like most artists, like Ed Sheeran, very big artist, he went to lots of little clubs first. He got booed, people threw stuff at him, you know, and he's like, but he builds up that, I call it the risk muscle.
Yes.
It's like you build up that barrier to risk where it's like, it's no big deal. People throw us like, this is a small room of 20 people. They don't like me. It doesn't matter. I practiced today in front of. So that's what people need to do, isn't it? They need to basically put themselves out there.
And I would put all of those things, I would say they're like slightly different, but they're like related skills. I would say it's like a bucket of skill, which is like the ability to endure failure, the ability to endure rejection, the ability to endure embarrassment.
Skills.
Yeah.
I like positioning them as skills, actually. I think
they are
that's really
skills.
clever.
They are skills. And you practice them, you work them, and you have to be intentional about it. If you try to get through life without ever failing or embarrassing yourself, then when it eventually does happen, it's going to absolutely demoralize you.
I was waiting for you to draw a lion. I thought that's what we were all,
all
excited about you drawing a lion.
Here, I'll give you my lion.
Yeah, and then a man in a cage eating the lion. Because the irony is people listen will be like, well, what happens when the lion, you get used to it and you get so comfortable and then one day the lion eats you? Siegfried and Roy, didn't that happen to them? Like,
well, there is such a thing as overconfidence, right?
Yeah, you get eaten by lions.
There's my lion for you. Roar.
Well, that's pretty good.
Here we go.
I think you undervalued yourself as an illustrator, to be fair.
Yeah, this is...
I see that as a cover of your next book, to be honest. That's got something about it,
maybe this is my dream.
You discovered this in with me. All right. So at this stage, we're going to go into this more depth, but is there anything else here where people need to understand that, practical ways that people can live this way?
I think the most important takeaway here is that these things are a skill. You have emotional skill sets. There is an emotional skill set existing inside your brain. And if you have not practiced that, if you've gone through life just suppressing and ignoring your emotions, then you haven't practiced those skills. And those skills are absolutely crucial for whatever your big goal or dream is going to be. You're going to have to deal with failure. You're going to have to be anxious at some point. And so you want to start practicing those skills, get those reps in early when the stakes are low, so that when you do end up in a moment where the stakes are high, you're prepared and you're ready to go.
I think people can relate to the fact, like during COVID, where everyone was stuck indoors, people had more anxiety then when they weren't out in the real world. So actually being out in the real world reduces the anxiety. So if you don't do something for long enough, it will become a problem where you give up. You're scared about it. As opposed to like if you lean in. I think that's true with like social media now, which I think is a huge opportunity for people. You can get millions of views on a video if you're promoting a product or starting a company. It's like free marketing. People's biggest fear is they just don't do it.
Yeah,
and I think if you do it once, you learn to build up resistance to the haters, the negative comments. It's like they become part of like, actually, I kind of crave them now. I'm like, unfortunately, I don't have enough haters anymore. So my videos.
Oh, we can fix that.
We can fix that. I'm sure we can fix it. But
give me an hour. I'll help you
we'll
out.
get there. But I think by the way, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, in part, there's a lot of noise out there about like mental health and, give people room and, mental health anxiety. I mean, I actually got someone in my DMs this morning talking about how she can't go to work anymore because she has so much stress going to work.
Wow.
And you have to be empathetic to that.
Yeah.
And totally understand that is affecting that person. But there is also a part of me that says, you've got to learn to build up that. Otherwise, what? You're not going to go out in the real world anymore. That's the conclusion if you give in to that.
Yeah.
That instinct you have of like, this is hurting my mental health, right?
So I got a great diagram for this.
Better than that. Can't be better than that.
Sorry, Lion. We're going to have
Goodbye, Lion.
Yeah. Goodbye, Lion.
You are immortalized on camera. So.
If you imagine, so we're going to do like a little chart here. And it's like kind of like a bell curve like that. So on this axis, we'll call it stress. And then on this axis, we'll call it growth. There's kind of like a Goldilocks zone of human pain, right? If you don't have enough pain in your life or enough stress or enough struggle or enough challenge, you don't grow. You're stuck over here. You're in stasis. And in many cases, actually, you actually get more fragile. You get weaker, not stronger. It's like a muscle that you never exercise, right? And here, if you get way too much stress and pain and struggle, over here is the trauma zone. It's overwhelming. Yeah. It's
fight or flight, can't think straight.
It just breaks something inside you. You have a panic attack. You like totally lose it, right? But this Goldilocks zone in here of stress and struggle, this is where the growth happens. And basically kind of the magic formula to hit this zone is it needs to be challenging plus doable. That's the magic formula. So you need to find things. So again, we'll take the singer, right? Let's say she is just so terrified to sing in front of anybody that she can't even fathom it. She can't even sing in front of her parents, right? So step one is start as small as possible. It feels both challenging, but also doable. So maybe step one is just sing in front of my mom. And then you do that until that feels comfortable. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to sing in front of my best friend. And you do that till it feels comfortable. And then you do it until it stops feeling challenging and it's only doable. And so then you go find the next thing that's both challenging and doable, right? And so now it's like, okay, I'm going to sing in front of my classmates, or I'm going to sing in front of a group of 10 people at the pub, next weekend. And then you do that until it stops feeling challenging, but it's only doable. And then you just keep scaling up in that way. And the problem is when you showed up as challenging, not doable, right? Because in her mind, she's like, oh my God, 9 million people are going to see this. I need to be perfect. I need to have my song ready. I need to be in key. I need to have like all my notes figured out. I need to practice. I can't do this. It's not doable. So it's a no-go. And potentially if she like tried to force herself to do it and she was absolutely awful and I don't know, everybody on the internet started like making fun of her or whatever, she has not built up that muscle to handle it. So she's going to be in the trauma zone, right?
Yeah, good point.
But this is like the mechanism inside of all of us. And my sense from you, it's interesting what you just said. It's funny because it's like this happens a lot with people. My sense is you have built up this muscle so much throughout your life, throughout your business career. And you told me a little bit about, your being an adolescent, being kicked out of the home. Like you've been through so much stuff and you've built up so much resilience and your stress muscle and dealing with difficult emotions that when you said, you're like, well, yeah, it's so easy now. You just start posting on social media and it's like free marketing. And I'm like, that just what you said there is absolutely mortifying to like 95% of the human population. Like the idea of like posting something on Instagram or TikTok and the idea that 1,000 people are going to see it and judge it and talk shit about you and be a hater or whatever. People like you and me who've been doing it for decades, it's like, whatever, this is just the job. But like people who've never been exposed to that, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, which is why most people don't do it.
I think I'm fascinated by the word doable because, I mean, she's singing to me, right? I'm one person there. The fact that I said there's 9 million, maybe that's put a bit of pressure on, but in reality, it's just me there. And if you love something, if you love to sing, this is the thing about asking people what their dream is. I'm like, well, if you love it, doesn't it make you do the impossible? Like, if you really love it, that's almost like the test, isn't it? Is this really your dream? Because if this is really your dream, then it's doable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you live with regret. So how are you going to fix that later? You can't go back in time to that moment and sing.
It's a really interesting question. Actually, let me throw this back at you. What's the difference between a dream and a fantasy?
They have a correlation.
Yeah.
I think again, ironically, a fantasy is often not doable.
Yeah.
Whereas a dream, most people's dreams, I want to open a coffee shop. I want to be a singer. I want to launch my own clothing brand. These are all doable, especially now. Like, that's why I'm really obsessed with helping people with their dreams, because I think thanks to the internet and social media, everyone seems to see as a bad thing. I'm like, actually, you can compete with Walmart today.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't compete with Walmart at 20. I couldn't do it. But you're 20 today, you could compete with Walmart. You could set up a TikTok shop. You could post a video on TikTok.
Yeah.
You can be selling more product today than Walmart.
Yeah.
Fact. It's more doable than ever.
Yeah. It's interesting. I agree with that. And I would add to that too. I think the point of the dream is the dream. The point of the fantasy is comfort in the moment. Right? Like, if I have a fantasy about, I don't know, like...
Be careful. Where are you going with this now?
Yeah.
It's not that sort of channel.
Yeah. Bleep.
Yeah, bleep. Go on, now we all need to know what your fantasy is, so I'll sit back.
No, it's like if my fantasy is, I don't know, I have like a
I'm going red for you. I don't know why. It's weird. I don't know. Go on. Tell me what your fantasy is.
To have I don't know, like a 500-foot yacht or something, right? Like, it's
totally doable, by the way. You sold a lot.
It is doable. Yeah. No, let me pick something that is like
more fantasy.
My fantasy is like to go live on a moon of Jupiter or something, like, right? Like, that's probably not doable.
Well, but ironically, if you were Elon Musk, you'd be doing it. But like, easy. Yeah. Just raise some capital. Come up with a brand name. Next thing, you hire some really smart people.
Yeah.
It's next week. You're on your way.
But or if you think about like reading the point of a fantasy is like, it's similar to like reading a fiction book, right? Like, the point is the comfort it gives you in the moment, and the solace it gives you, the way it kind of eases your fears and pains. It's like therapeutic in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas a dream is, I agree with you. Like, I've had this conversation too with a lot of my readers of, people will come to me and they're like, I've wanted to do this for 10 years. And I'll be like, okay, well, tell me, what have you worked on so far? And like, have you practiced this? Or have you learned that? Or have you like taken a course? And it's like nothing. They've done nothing. And my intuition is always like, well, then I don't think you actually want this. I think you want to want this.
Yeah. It sounds good.
I think you like the idea of wanting this, but you don't actually want it because you actually haven't done anything. And I do think there is a very powerful notion in that.
I think, well, again, we'll move on to the next bit in a minute, but I think the doable bit, if the pain is there, you have to make it doable. So I want to fix the education system. It's actually my end goal. So I had to learn to teach. I need to give people knowledge for free.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I can't just fix the education system. Initially, I had to offer an alternative to it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's so important to me because of that 15-year-old me that didn't have the knowledge to live in the real world. How ridiculous is that after 12 years of education? The pain is so deep. Fixing the education system doesn't sound doable, but it's something that has to happen.
Yeah.
It's not even a question of is it doable or not. It will have to change.
Are you familiar with the idea of post-traumatic growth?
I think I know what it means, but it's like, no, I don't know exactly.
So it is the lesser-known cousin of post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Okay.
Right? So everybody's heard of PTSD.
Yes.
What most people don't know is that for every person who has a traumatic event in their life and has PTSD, there is 3 to 4 people who have a traumatic event and they experience what's called post-traumatic growth, which is that traumatic event actually becomes one of the best things that happens.
Yeah.
It like clarifies what their values. It like shows them what actually matters in their life. It makes them
gives them purpose.
It makes them grateful for the things that they have. And they actually go on and accomplish a lot more over the following years. I almost think, if you look at the post-traumatic growth research, one of the most common things that you see among people who experience post-traumatic growth versus PTSD is that people who experience post-traumatic growth see handling their trauma as doable. They see it as, this is something I'm going to overcome. And this is something that one day I'm going to look back on and I know I'm going to be a better person for it. They have that belief and that perception at the outset, and then it ends up making it a reality.
Right.
Whereas the PTSD people, by and large, it's not everybody, it's not this simple, but like more often the PTSD people see it as insurmountable. They see it as like, this is something I'll never come back from, that I'll never get over.
To help fund dreams and make content like this, we work with great brands who pay us, and we use that money to make this content for free for you and fund dreams. I only work with brands I believe in, and one such brand is Vanta. No matter what stage you're building your business at, whether you're a small startup or an elaborate, successful big brand, there's one thing that matters above all else: trust. Today, it's not enough just to say your business is secure. You have to prove it.
Whether it's SOC 2 or ISO 27001,
Demonstrating strong security practices is critical, but navigating security and compliance can be a massive drain on your time, on your money, and on your focus, which is essential to keep for yourself when you're growing a business or starting a business. This is why I recommend Vanta.
Vanta is a trust management platform which makes proving your security easier. It automates up to 90% of the work for in-demand frameworks like SOC 2 and ISO 27001.
Getting you audit ready in weeks instead of months. And it's not just about peace of mind, it's about a return on investment. A recent report found that Vanta customers see over $535,000 worth of benefits per year. And the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. Over 10,000 businesses already trust Vanta, including mine. So if you're building something great, and it doesn't matter what stage you're at in your business, Vanta can help you grow it. Check out vanta.com/Simon to get started.
Let's talk about point 2, what other people think. Because during that process, there must have been a lot of people saying, well, get a real job.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
What are you doing? So you're 23, that's okay.
Yep.
Getting to 25, 26, must be family pressures and people are like, what are you doing, man? It's writing shit. No one's going to make any money out of that.
Yeah, nobody knew. So again, this was like the dark ages of the creator economy. So
the internet was also not a proven formula for you to get.
Nobody knew what this was. I remember sitting down with my dad, probably like around 2012, 2013. This was still pre-book. But my blog was doing really well, but I was making 6 figures by that point. And I remember sitting down with him and he was kind of like asking me about business and like trying to figure out what I was doing. And he asked me if I was paying taxes. I was like, Dad, do you think I'm like drug running between South America or something?
You're like doing on the internet.
Yeah, right? He like knew I was living in South America and I suddenly had all this money and he like just didn't understand what was happening or what I was doing. And
by the way, so blow this podcast up. If this is where you do admit you did do a little bit of drug trafficking just to pay the bills, that would be perfect.
Breaking
news. Best-selling war drug trafficking. But so tell people what other people think is a big deal.
It is.
So tell people how to get over this.
It's ultimately you have to find the things that are more important to you and more precious to you than what other people think. You're always going to care what other people think. You're always going to care. And you shouldn't change that because that is what makes you human. That's what makes you a good friend and a good brother or sister or son or daughter or whatever. Like you should care what people think. The question is like, what are the few things in your life that are so important to you that you believe in so strongly that you're willing to be disliked for? And I don't think most people think about that. I think most people are just so caught up in make people like me, make people like me, make people like me, that they don't consider that question. Because the irony is that once you do figure that out, once you do kind of figure out like what you're willing to stand for and what you're willing to be disliked for, people actually start liking you a lot more for it. Because they know who you are, they know where you stand, and they know that you're like, they respect you, right? Even if they don't agree with what you're doing or agree with all your views, they're like, they see that you're legit and you care and you're willing to suffer for something. And like, it's just human nature to respect that.
Is there any framework for like how to stop the instant reaction to having. So, for example, I'll post on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I think the property business has got out of control, and I believe that property is a basic. Living somewhere is a basic human right, and so I'm quite anti the property industry, like the buy to rent thing, for example. I know a lot of people do it, but I think it's actually causing a pain. A nurse can't pay rent. Can't afford to buy, we can't afford to pay them more. So we're causing a lot of problems. But anyway, so I post this, and then people that I actually really respect will be like, that's a load of rubbish. Property's a business, that's just good. It's good for the economy. Don't be a socialist.
Yeah.
And I find myself like, oh, no, you're wrong. You know, like this business is causing problems. You know, monopoly was invented by a woman to prove that, you know, property shouldn't be a game because only one winner at the end. And I find myself like getting worked up. Is there because I care about that subject.
Of course.
Kind of to the point one, right? I do give a fuck about that.
Yes.
But is there a framework to like not care? This whole what other people think thing is, what is the framework? I think I'm asking for help really. How do I not care what those people say, you know?
You're always going to care. The question, let me ask you this. Do you regret posting that?
No, I'd post it again if I wasn't going to annoy the algorithm.
There you go. I mean, it's worth... what I hear you saying is it was worth the pain. It's worth the pain. Yeah, it's worth the dislike.
But I like the people that don't like me. It's kind of annoying. Well, I say in fairness, they don't agree with that one point. Sure. I have to say.
Sure.
And I actually like dialogue, you know, and there's no problem.
So here's another way to think about it. No matter what you do in the world, there's always going to be a group of people who don't like you. So they might as well not like you for things you care about.
Right. Yeah. What do people not like you for? Just anything?
I say fuck too much.
Oh, they don't? Really? I haven't noticed that. You've got books with that word on it. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many emails I get from, you know, cranky old ladies telling me.
You don't need to swear. Yeah, I get it on the YouTube channel a lot as well. But is there anything else in your life that you think, okay, I don't want people to think that about me? Or
you know, it's funny. Sometimes I get attacked by I would call it kind of like the political far left because we haven't gotten to the responsibility piece yet. But like, I mean, ultimately, like so much of mental health and happiness and flourishing is like driven through personal responsibility and the ability to like choose your own life and choose how you see things and like take ownership of the things in your life. And for some reason, I don't think this is a good thing, but like a lot of people on the left have started associating that view with, I guess, right-wing politics. And so I get attacked for that, which is weird because I'm not politically right-wing. But yeah, I get.
Well, back to what I was saying, if we wanted to get hated or cancelled, it's time to talk about like people's mental health. You know, all you have to do is like push through the pain and you'll be fine. You know, like, and then people take that the wrong way. And I think that you got to be sensitive to it.
It's nuanced, right? You know, it's the bell curve, and there are legitimately people on the wrong side of the curve, and you do have to pay attention to them and be compassionate for them and everything. But it's like, it's the internet. I mean, it's just par for the course that if you're going to post things online, people are going to hate you. And some of it will be legitimate. Like some of them will legitimately just disagree with you, which is fine. But some of them will just project whatever they're going through and their own experiences onto you. And
sometimes I found that people can actually educate you in an area you weren't thinking about.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's good if people don't like you.
Absolutely.
And you can learn. I think what other people think, one of the areas, I mean, I've been with my wife 23 years. I really care what she thinks.
Yeah.
And I can't ever, I wish I couldn't, if there's any answer to that one.
Yes.
You know, there is an answer because she definitely gets inside my head.
I would say it's good that you care what your wife thinks.
I guess so.
I mean, I'm not.
Can you get to that level though where you don't? Like,
I'm not a marriage counselor,
okay,
but
well, you say that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's good that you care what your wife thinks.
Fair.
But I think it's useful to think about this. I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's useful to think about this in tiers. So one of my most viral social media posts is I said, if you wouldn't ask them for advice, then why the fuck do you care about their criticism?
Right.
Which is
brilliant.
Like,
true.
People don't consider that. So, like, if you kind of imagine you've got like this pyramid, right? And these are all the people that you interact with in your life. And we'll say like, we'll say like up here is
my wife and Callum, maybe for me.
Is like family. You know, we've got coworkers, neighbors, community, whatever. And then down here, you get down to strangers. And then down here, you get to people you don't respect. That's just, Let's call them assholes.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is actually an academic term.
I've heard it.
Yeah, it's a sociologist call them assholes. But yeah, it's basically people you don't respect. You don't respect their opinion. You know, it's the trolls, it's the haters, it's the shit posters, it's the bots. Like, and it's interesting because to the point about social media, right? Like, people will over-index on these people.
Yeah, they're going to be the loudest. That's why.
Yes, and then they will under-index on these people.
Mm.
So it's like if you take that girl singing, right? It's like if she did that. All of her friends. Oh, we got to add friends.
Yeah, go girl, well done.
Yeah, every single person she's ever known in her whole life would send her a message of encouragement, being like, "Good for you, go get it.
Can't believe you're out there.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I'm so proud of you."
Yeah.
Right. But what is she indexing on? She's indexing on this.
Yeah.
And it's one of those ways that I think I always say that social media is like a funhouse mirror. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's not reflecting. It is reflecting reality, but it's distorting the proportions of reality. Mm-hmm. It's making things that actually aren't important look way more important, and it's making things that are not important or that are important look less important.
I think this is partly because we used to live in tribes.
Yes.
And of course, yes, we'd have our family and friends and co-workers, but if we lived in tribes on average of 5,000 people, these arseholes actually mattered.
Yeah.
But they don't matter now.
Yeah.
But it's instinctively in us. As part of our DNA as humans, we've got this far. What has got us here won't get us there. Right?
Yeah.
So I kind of think like we need to reset this bit.
Yeah.
Because in the tribal scene, that mattered. Those arseholes mattered because you're still living with them.
Yes.
You might not like them, you don't need to do anything, but they're slagging you off to the neighbors and to the other people in the tribe and even your co-workers. They can infect the rest of the tribe against you. So,
and I would say too that it's like the social media platforms in general, they amplify these down here, right? These are the people you hear from the most. Like you get on Twitter. You don't see people posting, look at my new puppy or, oh my God, my brother.
People should do that, by the way.
They should.
There you go. A little idea for you. They'll probably do quite well.
Yeah, post your puppies.
Post your puppies.
Yeah. No, you get on and it's like...
you said that's wrong.
It's literally just like all of the 18 ways the world is going to end in the next 6 months.
Right.
and whose fault it is.
And then Elon Musk will retweet it anyway.
So exactly.
They only retweet the negative stuff. I've sent lovely messages to Elon Musk. He's never retweeted it. You say something negative like Elon Musk is a scammer and he'll share it. Like, people also like to amplify the arseholes as well, which is the weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, next on the list was personal responsibilities. Okay, so tell us about personal responsibility.
All right. So ultimately, we talked about how you're giving a fuck about something. And ultimately, it's a choice. It's like you're choosing to make something important. You're choosing to give it your attention or, your emotion. That is a choice that you're making each and every moment. You are deciding what to pay attention to, how to react to something, what to think about it all the time, whether you realize it or not. And this is the funny thing is like when people criticize me for the personal responsibility piece, I don't think they actually read my book, because if they did, they'd realize that it's like, this is not a subjective argument. I'm not like this is not a prescriptive, like, oh, people should be responsible. No, this is a philosophical, like, you are responsible in every single moment because you are making choices in every single moment. Like in this moment, we are choosing to talk and listen to each other. We're choosing to sit in front of a camera. We're choosing to, whatever we talk about next, like every single moment we are making choices. And because we are making choices and we have agency, that means we have a responsibility for those choices. Mm-hmm. So even if I walk outside here and I get hit by a bus and it was not my fault, I had nothing to do with it, I'm purely a victim, it is still my responsibility when I wake up in the hospital to get better. It's still my responsibility to decide, what am I going to think about this? What am I going to feel about this? What are my goals from here? What are my recovery goals? Am I going to go back to work? Who am I going to call? Am I going to call my parents? Am I going to call my wife? Like those are all, I'm responsible for every single one of those choices in those moments. And so just because something is not your fault, every single thing in your life is still your responsibility.
I love that. To me, it's reframing. It's like good luck and bad luck are both still luck.
Yes.
Depends on how you frame it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I made a lot of money selling a company. You could argue that was good luck. Then I didn't have anything to do because I had too much money and I didn't have any purpose for a while. So the good luck,
was bad luck. Because I think framing is really important, right? How people frame their, like you say, the accident. It can happen to any of us. Yep. Hopefully not, touch wood, but it can happen to any of us, right? And then, like you say, this gives me a chance to reset my life and reset my values and build myself stronger and better than before, right? That kind of like positive attitude towards even the worst situations.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that's kind of happened in society now. A lot of this personal responsibility has been taken away from you. The government's letting you down.
Yeah.
The government's not paying enough. The cost of living are too high. So it's someone else's fault. I think political parties lean on this too. It's like, because this is in us, isn't it? That we're looking for excuse to blame someone else for not taking responsibility for our own actions.
You're a marketer. Like, what's the easiest way to hook somebody? Tell them they're a victim.
Totally.
Tell them it's not your fault.
Yeah.
You've been scammed. Yeah. Let me show you the way. Yeah. Like, it's sick. And I think it's the proliferation of those messages just has happened so much more with the internet and technology that, like, we're inundated with it a lot more often. And I think it raises the stakes for this, for the understanding of this, the realization of it, because it's that much more important.
I tried to stay out of politics, but just lately I'm getting dragged into it a little bit because there's a lot of politicians in England that will blame someone else and people just lap it up.
Yeah.
So there's two sides, in England anyway. The left will blame the rich.
Yeah.
So it's tax the rich.
Yep.
So somehow it's all the rich people's fault. And if you're poor, it's their fault.
Yeah.
Right. And equally on the other side, the right will kind of like, it's an immigrant's fault. They took your job. They took your opportunity,
We have a similar thing over here.
Yeah. And I just think that if we just back up and just say, look, what can you do to change things? How can you make your life better? That agency thing really is important.
It is.
And it's getting lost because actually there's no middle ground anymore.
Yeah.
This isn't being said as a political party, so people are hearing all this noise. Are you on this side? It's all the rich people's fault, or on this side, it's an immigrant's fault, pick a side.
Yeah.
Whereas you can just pick the middle, which I think is like, okay, what can I do to make the world a better place, first of all?
Yeah.
What can you do to make people's lives better? Help someone for 4 minutes today, that type of, but equally also, how can you help yourself? Like take control. And I really wish we could give that to people. Have you always felt this way? Have you always taken personal responsibility?
No. Yeah. No. I was very much, when I was young, I was lazy, entitled, whiny, smoked a lot of pot. This came later for me.
What changed? How come this hit you?
Post-traumatic growth. So when I was 19, a really good friend of mine drowned and died. I was with him when it happened. And it just sent me into a deep depression. I spiraled into this just black hole for 3 or 4 months. And one of the outcomes of that, by the end of it, was I just had this deep feeling that I was wasting my time, that I was wasting my life. Because part of what was so hard about that experience was realizing, like, it could have been me. I was just as drunk as he was. I was swimming in the same lake. Like, it literally could have been anybody. And the being exposed, I was 19, so being exposed to just your own mortality in that dramatic of a way, I really came out of it being like, I have to stop fucking around. Like, I quit smoking pot. I started going to the gym. I started actually studying for class for the first time in my life. And I actually let myself start to dream. I had like one dream up to that point. I wanted to be a musician when I was young. But similar to the girl on the TikTok, like I worked towards it, but I wasn't doing everything I could. And coming out of that experience, like it really kind of reset that. It was like, look, man, you're 19, 20, you're smart. You've never really like applied yourself at anything before. What if you do? Like, what could you become? What can you do in this world? Right. And it really set me on a much better trajectory. But it's like so much is downstream of this. Like, if you don't believe you have any choice in your own life, then it's powerless. There's a Spider-Man thing. So you remember Uncle Ben tells Spider-Man, he says, with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So that's wrong. Or maybe it's right. But like...
Well, he's dead now. He can't even defend himself.
Yeah, he can't even defend himself. So.
You would have a hater right now if he was here.
The truth is, it works in reverse. The more responsibility you take for your life, the more power you have over your life. Because when you take responsibility for your life, essentially what you're saying to yourself is, I can change this. You can take the worst shit that's happened to you, the worst circumstance, and if you decide you're responsible for it, essentially what you're telling your subconscious is, I can change this. And I'm not only can I change it, but I am morally obliged to change it. I'm doing myself a disservice by not changing it. I'm doing the people who care about me a disservice by not changing it. And that may feel heavy, but it's actually extremely liberating when you adopt it.
I love this so much. I've never heard this before. And I think it's, if you take responsibility, like I tried to promote the idea that people could start their own business, but a lot of people were working for someone else.
Yeah.
Ironically, if you take responsibility in your job, you'll get power.
Yes. Isn't it funny how that works?
Yeah. If you accept, I could have done this better, or I can do this better, or I will do this, the power will come your way.
Like, as a boss, as an employer, like nothing sounds more like music to my ears when somebody on my team comes to me and is like, I just took care of this thing.
Yeah.
I just did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like the clouds part, the angels sing.
Totally.
I'm like, thank you for this person. You know, it's like as an employer, like that's what you dream about.
Yeah, let's do a comic book. I'm doing a kids book at the moment. I'm doing a book with Penguin for 8 to 12-year-olds. I think this is a really interesting thing because I want kids to have superpowers.
Yeah.
But ironically, take responsibility for things. Like my son at the moment is unloading and loading up the dishwasher. Even that sounds a bit privileged.
Yeah.
But he's got a responsibility. And I kind of see he has power. It's like, I'm doing that. The other day I tried to do it because I wanted to quickly go watch a program with him. So he's like, no, it's mine.
Yeah.
So he has power in that responsibility, that silly little responsibility. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of studies showing that kids that have take on things, like they do chores in the house, for example, they grow up much more balanced. They take on things, right? They take on, that's their responsibility. Yeah. And that empowers them. And gives them freedom.
I believe it. You definitely see it in research among adults. So in the psychological literature, this is often referred to as self-efficacy, which is basically the belief that you have the ability to influence your own life. And self-efficacy is it's correlated with like basically every good outcome you could ever want. People with high self-efficacy, they tend to be happier. They're more resilient when things go wrong. They achieve more success. They're more motivated. They tend to be physically healthier. They live longer. Like, you just go down the line. It's just everything.
Ironically, I think a lot of people try to strip this from you. There's nothing you can do unless you vote for me.
Yeah, right. Try not to. Unless you buy my shit.
Yeah, buy my shit. It all gets fixed. Yeah. Buy my book and it'll be fine. All right. Okay. So finally, emotional management. So what do we need to know about this?
I mean, basically, it's to come back to the skill thing. I think there's two kind of interesting analogies to play with emotions. We already talked about the skill thing to a certain extent. You can develop skill sets around your emotions. So first of all, this is the biggest mistake that everybody makes. They feel anxious a lot, or they feel angry, or they feel sad. And their natural instinct is, I want to stop being anxious, or I want to stop being sad, or I want to stop being angry. And that never works. Because ultimately, like your emotions, they serve a biological and neurological purpose. Your emotions are feedback. They are telling you that something is off in your life or in your environment and that you need to adapt to it. And so if you try to suppress or pretend like the emotion's not there, you're essentially removing a feedback mechanism that's designed for your own survival and your own flourishing. So never try to get rid of an emotion. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. There's only bad responses to emotions. So every emotion is immediately okay. It's fine. You can feel whatever you feel. That said, there are better and worse ways to respond to each emotion. And part of those good and bad responses are, we talked about it being a skill, developing the skill set around anger or developing a skill set around your anxiety. Another interesting metaphor is that there are emotional habits. Right? Like if you look at somebody who, quote unquote, has anger issues, it's not so much that maybe they're angry a lot. There are a lot of people that get angry a lot. It's just not everybody's punching holes in walls and like wrecking their car and, starting fights, on the street corner every weekend. It's some of it is the habits that you've built around the emotion. Like there's a kind of an if-then process that happens in your brain of like, if angry, then do XYZ. And if the XYZ are that you've linked to the emotion are just really bad behaviors, then that emotion is going to be really problematic in your life. And so the point is, don't get rid of the emotion, change the associated behaviors.
I think, so my 7-year-old, I was thinking, he doesn't do what I say, he does what I do. So I think we do, our environment is very about this. If you see someone get angry quickly, you end up getting angry quickly. Like who you associate with can really directly connect to your emotions. If people are listening and they're like, okay, so I do feel emotional, I do react badly. Is it like count for 10 seconds? Is there a coping mechanism? You know, people can reset these things?
Generally, the easiest way to cope, the most dependable way to cope with any emotion, especially a negative emotion, is time, and that's where the 10-second thing comes from. It's also like so when we get overwhelmed by an emotion, we get triggered, as the term has become very popular. And when you're triggered, that means that you're essentially out of your executive function and you're just responding. Like you have lost awareness of yourself and your own behaviors, and you're just doing the action. And so the taking 10 seconds, taking a deep breath, removing yourself from a situation, that's very useful for somebody who either has been triggered or gets triggered very often or easily. It can help you develop that separation between emotion and response. I think meditation is actually great for this, because what meditation is actually training you to do from a psychological perspective, as you observe your own thoughts and feelings in your mind, the more you observe them, the more you disassociate from them, or disassociate's probably not the proper word, but like you disidentify with them. That's the proper word. The more you observe them, the more you disidentify from them. Like the more there's a thing in Zen Buddhism that they always say, or my Zen master used to say, which is like, he said, don't say you are angry, say you have anger. Because when you say you are angry, you are identifying as anger, that it is a permanent state, or it's a part of you that you can't control. Whereas if you say, I have anger, well, I have anger. I can put it over here, or I can put it over there, or I can do this. I can throw it away. I can do all sorts of stuff with it, right? Bringing it back to that agency and responsibility. It brings that agency back. So you can say, instead of being like, I am anxious, you say, I have anxiety right now. What am I going to do with it? But yeah, meditation's a great practice for developing that separation from stimulus and response. And then in that gap between the two, you will slowly develop the ability to like decide where to actually direct the emotion.
I tried meditation myself. I can never clear my mind. My mind just won't let me clear.
Yeah.
But I think
nobody can.
I think sleep.
Yes.
And eating proper food, if you can, so stupid, simple stuff.
So true, dude. Sleep. So, okay. This is the obnoxious lesson of the last 4 years of my life. I used to take pride. So for people who have read this, I kind of took pride as like, yeah, I'm the dude staying up till 3 a.m., drinking whiskey and pounding Red Bulls and like still building a business and crushing it and doing all this stuff, right? As soon as I got this stuff in order, oh my God, did I feel like an idiot. Like this, all three of these things unlocked so much more energy, so much more motivation and drive, and also made this stuff easier. Like you become, you feel so much more stable in your emotions. I'll add alcohol to this because that was a huge one for me. I noticed that when I gave up alcohol, my anxiety lessened quite a bit. I was more even keel, even when I wasn't drinking. Like it was, even days after drinking, I would be kind of emotionally up and down and unstable, really bummed out one day for no reason. And when I stopped drinking, all those things went away.
I find I'd have one here, which is people, the right people around you.
That's a great one, too.
I fell out with my mum when I was 15 years old. It's a long story, but since she's not in my life, I feel less angry, and she triggers me.
Yeah.
And that's probably my fault as much as hers. But like, I think having the right people around you, right, the right partner in life,
yes,
I think it's probably the number one factor in whether you're going to have a good life or not.
Totally.
And if you get sleep, exercise, eat well, and not have alcohol, you're probably really giving yourself a high chance of success.
It's so ironic too, because this stuff is like, it's so simple.
So obvious.
It's so
Shouldn't
obvious.
Have to do a podcast about it.
I know. And yet it is like...
we forget.
I know.
Yeah.
And I personally feel stupid. It's funny. So last year, they did a massive meta-analysis of every single intervention that you can have for depression. So like therapy, every form of therapy, every antidepressant on the market, even like unconventional stuff, meditation, yoga, ESMR therapies, rapid eye movement stuff, like you name it, it was in there. And what came out on top?
Probably sleep and exercise.
Exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise is more effective than the best therapy and the best antidepressants on the market for depression.
Yeah. I got jet lag the last few days, so I'm a bit grumpy with the team. It's definitely, they're like, yeah, guy, get some sleep.
Yeah.
But can I just flip it for 1 second?
Sure.
Before we come to an end? And emotion, however, can also power you up.
Absolutely.
So I did a talk last week, and I was quite emotional about how we've got to fix the education system. And in that talk, I was really emotional. And the amount of LinkedIn posts afterwards, people were like, I feel emotional. That emotional transfer of what you care about. On the flip side, using emotion can be a tool.
So let me ask you this: you said that you're very passionate about education, right? And that's a big cause for you, a big mission for you. I imagine you often get angry about the state of the education system, and
I try to suppress it so I don't show it on camera too much. But I do get quite angry.
I imagine you do. So that, to me, that's a perfect example of you have anger, and you have found a way to channel it.
Yes, I wasn't saying productive.
Way.
Yeah, that's what I hate about politics again, because I think sometimes present the problem and the solution is a dumb, not real solution. Yeah. So I'd rather build something to fix the education system than my anger is contained in a vehicle that is taking action.
Exactly. And that comes back to the point is like, there's no bad emotion. There's
that's a good emotion. I need it. It gets me up in the morning.
There's good and bad responses to an emotion. And you found a good response for your anger around education. And it's like, that's ultimately, we have to do that with each of the things, each of the quote unquote negative emotions in our life. Like, we just need to find a channel for it in a direction that's productive and useful.
One of the things that, people listening, criticism. When I was younger, I used to really hate it.
Yeah.
Someone would criticize me. I'm like, last thing I need is you putting me down.
Yeah.
As I get older, I'm like, the emotion of like, oh, I have something I can improve on.
Yeah.
Like, tell me, there's a lot of things I can improve on, of course, but like, I like it.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm like, what can I do better? It's kind of Callum and my team's always asking. I like that. It's like, what, that trigger me. Come on, It's like, get me thinking about how I can be stronger. It's I think positive emotion is quite a unique thing. Not talked about enough, actually. It's sometimes put in a box of like, sort your emotions out, get sleep, exercise, nutrition, no alcohol, good people. But there's something in actually taking that emotion, making a vehicle out of it.
It's funny because, especially in your world, kind of on the more business side of things, like I see, whenever I'm kind of a tourist in your world, I'm more personal development. So like the emotional stuff comes up a lot. But like when I kind of venture into your world, it feels like everybody wants the productivity hack. Everybody wants the morning routine. Everybody wants the like, what's your time boxing system, or like what software are you using or whatever. They want the tools and the tactics. And I'll start talking about this stuff. I'm like, well, if you're like really aligned on your purpose and you're like feeling really motivated in your relationships in a good place, you're gonna have like 50% more energy at work. Totally. And you're going to be more creative, and you're going to be like, take feedback better, and you're going to have like, you're going to collaborate better, and you're going to make sales pitches better. And I feel like nobody wants to hear that. They're like, oh, no, emotion stuff. Like, no.
Well, people like this stuff because sleep, exercise, nutrition is like a structural thing you can change. Emotion, most people, I've invested in over 80 companies, and the ones that have done really well, they're like, they weren't doing it for the money, which is really cheesy, but they were doing it because there's a problem in the world they wanted to fix it.
Yeah.
And it maybe affected them at some point. And then it won't stop until it's done. And I think that tapping into that emotion is like purpose.
Yeah.
It gives you purpose. I just saw an advert on the way here for the military. It's like the military gives you purpose. And that's quite a dangerous ad, actually. I think it's quite an appealing ad, because I think that's the thing a lot of people don't realize they're missing. And it comes from emotion, I think.
Purpose is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
how did you, I mean, we talked about it earlier with your steps, but purpose was, so in the early days, what was your original framing? Okay, you wrote that blog for 3 people, but what was your early framing of that? Why did you write that blog for 3 people?
Honestly, I mean, initially I started just because it was a fun thing to do with my friends, right? So the purpose was actually quite small and local. Eventually, you know, once it kind of grew a little bit and I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, you know, the purpose was, like I said, just to sustain a partying lifestyle in Argentina and Brazil. And I did that for a few years, right? And then the snowball grew a little bit more and I kind of went back to the well and I looked at it again and the purpose got bigger again, which is like, you know, I really actually, I think I can have a career as an author and a writer and I would like to. And so I did that. And then it's, you know, it's just continued from there. I mean, I would say it's expanded again. Now it's more mission driven, in that I think my industry is kind of fucked up. You know, self-help. There's a lot of really good information in the self-help space. There's a lot of really trashy information in the self-help space. And I think a lot of vulnerable people are taken advantage of in the self-help space. And so I believe very passionately in just kind of being the antidote in this industry and being as authentic and healthy and evidence-based as possible and reaching as many people as possible. So that's what drives me today.
You're awesome.
Thanks.
Just to say, I genuinely think you what you're doing is awesome. It's needed. You're right. There's a lot of people out there that just need honest, real, practical advice, you know, common sense in some respects, but help in that way. There is a lot of bullshit. There's this whole thing at the moment, this guy putting face in ice. Have you seen that trend?
So funny.
You know, it's like people kind of like it because it's like, is that all I need to do?
Yeah.
I just need to put my face in ice.
Don't forget the banana peel.
Banana peel.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a banana.
Yeah.
I've got a bowl of ice.
Yeah.
That's it. Every day will be perfect.
Just got to get up at 3:50 and I'm set.
Done. Yeah, jump into my private pool. But I think the world really needs more kind of practical, real world advice. But people need to learn knowledge. They need to go deep on things. You've got a new podcast doing just that, haven't you?
Yes, we just launched a new podcast. It's called Solved, and the idea is that it goes super deep in a single topic for multiple hours. It covers all the bases. It's very comprehensive, all the different schools of thought, all the different competing theories and ideas, and then leaves the listener with clear takeaways on how to implement everything into their life. Speaking, you know, about the frustration with the industry, I feel like the podcast space in personal development, it's all the same guests coming on saying the same things. A lot of them contradict each other. A lot of them will say something crazy or loony and nobody calls them out on it.
To just get the views as opposed to like giving people what they need.
Yeah. And it's just, I think there really needs to be more clarity and focus on a lot of these interventions for people. So that's the goal with it.
What's it called again?
It's called Solved. It's on my YouTube channel. So they just go to Mark Manson on YouTube.
We'll put the link down below. If you're bored of this podcast, just go listen to that one.
Yep.
You know? So go ahead. Thank you for what you do.
Awesome.
Appreciate you. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, let us know. And we'll have to have some chicken now. We'll see you later.